Welcome back to the Dungeon of Doom. I am Kyle Meinke, Lions beat reporter for MLive, joined as always by Ben Raven. Lions 4-1, heading into a showdown with the unbeaten Minnesota Vikings on Sunday in Minneapolis. Big game, Ben. Also a huge loss for the Lions. We're understanding more of the picture now with Aidan Hutchinson, who we all saw the scene on Sunday. It was ugly. Broke his leg, 2 bones in his leg, had got an air cast right on the field. That's when you knew it was serious. Yeah. The whole team is coming out there to encircle him as he's being loaded to a stretcher. And as it turns out, taken immediately to a hospital to have surgery. He is done probably until the Super Bowl, if we're being honest, probably for the season, but they're not holding, they're not ruling him out yet, hoping he gets back in time for the Super Bowl, should they make it that far. Obviously, Ben, the task is tall to get there out of this division, which is the best in football right now, when you don't have your best defender, a defensive player of the year candidate. As you can imagine, there's a lot of questions about the Aidan Hutchinson situation and how the Lions will respond in the mailbag this week. But I guess before we dive in, your thoughts at this moment as the Lions try to proceed going into a huge game against a very good team in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's just stopping this Vikings offense is obviously all about stopping the quarterback, preventing plays going to Justin Jefferson, and the Lions are going to be without their best weapon to do that in Aidan Hutchinson. I mean, he wasn't just a key cog. He was probably the favorite, if not the runaway favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. And I think Aaron Glenn said it well this morning. We just got done talking to him in the last hour. It's like, you can't ask anybody to replace Hutchinson, but this is like the part of my job where I got to figure out ways to kind of replace that production, put guys in the right spot, and kind of, you didn't use the word tweak, but like they're going to have to tweak for that type of loss, and especially if they don't make an outside addition, which most of the questions this week deal with. So we'll get into that. But yeah, it sucks. I mean, it sucks for them going into this big matchup because the Vikings are legit, and the Vikings, man, Kevin O'Connell, right up there with Dan Campbell and all those other big names as being one of the best head coaches in the league. And they also got that guy, Brian Flores, on the other side on defense. So it's just, you got to find ways to manufacture pressure. And that feels like a last year answer, but they've got to find ways to manufacture pressure.
We've focused a lot on who the replacements will be on the edge, and that's understandable. Someone's got to line up there, and it's maybe the most important position on the field besides quarterback or arguably offensive tackle, I guess. And the options aren't great when you're down already. Marcus Davenport, Derek Barnes, who plays on the edge. There's a bad situation there. The thing that I take note of this week, Ben, and Dan Campbell has said it a few times, is that there's 11 men on the field, and it's not just defense, it's offense and special teams. This is going to be an all hands on deck effort to replace Aidan Hutchinson. There's whoever they roll out there is not going to be a 1-for-1 replacement. You're going to have inevitably a talent deficit. And unless you make a blockbuster trade for a guy like Max Crosby or whatever, and we'll dive into some of those scenarios in the mailbag, the kind of trade that Brad Holmes has never made in season, by the way. Right. So I think it's unlikely you're going to have a talent deficit at defensive end on the edge of this pass rush. That's a fact. So how do you move on? And it's the other guys on the field. It's the intangibles on the field. And I think something that occurred to me this week, I kind of think back to the TJ Hawkinson trade from 2022, right? Like they were 6 or 7 at that time. Going into Minnesota, maybe?
I think it was.
Now that I think about it.
When Sheila pulled us to the side. Yeah,
that's exactly right. The sky was falling. Yeah. They had a terrible first season. They have 1 win midway through the second season. They trade away, arguably, they're one of their best offensive skill players in TJ Hawkinson, one of the better pass-catching tight ends in the league. And everyone's like, okay, they're giving up on the season. You're going to get worse at tight end, which they did after that. But they scored 3 more points per game the rest of the way. And I think they went 8-2. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that. They had a talent deficit at one position, but they played the game a different way. Other guys stepped up. And that's what you're going to have happen here, because there is no Hutchinson walking through that door or someone like him. And I just don't think they're going to make a blockbuster trade either. So you're going to have to play this game a different way, manufacture pass rush a different way, whether it's a linebacker or a safety. Hello, Brian Branch. Yeah. Or Melifonwu, where are you at? Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. We're fixated on the defensive ends, and I understand it's not going to be good though. You're going to is going to be Ukwu or James Houston, who's been a healthy scratch. I mean, the massive loss on the edge. There's no way to get around it. The lines are going to have to play the game differently. Maybe on offense too, maybe controlling the clock longer to keep the defense on off the field. That's where you're at. Tough spot.
It is, man. And I the one thing I'm confident in is that the run defense is going to be just as good the way the linebackers are playing, that third level, second level guys are playing. And I just am curious about how the rotation is going to go because we're focusing on just like the pure edge guys. I think we're going to see a crap ton of Levi on the outside.
I mean,
there's going to be a lot of beef on that defensive line. Like Levi, DJ, and Aleem are going to be sharing the field quite a bit. And Pascal's no light guy either. I mean, there's going to be some power out there. So I just think, what can you do with those guys? How does that change the open lanes to send a guy on a blitz? How does that change the lanes? Maybe the linebackers start blitzing a little more. Maybe you get, I don't know. I have liked what I've seen out of Nowaski in the Sam spot in 2 games, a sack and a handful of pressures and limited snaps. But I just think in terms of the in-house edge rushers, there's not an answer. There's just not an answer. You don't replace Hutchinson, and you're not going to do that with these in-house guys. But I think that there is a big, meaty, tweaked element that can kind of get a lot of life out of this defense. And I mean, if you can keep Levi playing the way he's been doing, there's room for guys to step up. And I mean, look at Aleem McNeil, man, a near $100 million contract. He's no slouch. And I think the way that he's been coming on lately, that's good news. That's good timing too. So I think they've got some pieces to tweak and make this still be a top 15 defense. But yeah, you just don't replace Hutchinson, man. He's a freak.
I think we all expected an Aleem deal at some point, just with the trend they have of, okay, we're not going to pay guys in free agency necessarily, guys from outside the organization, but we're going to use that money to invest in all these pieces that we're acquiring in the draft. And we've seen it, with, just so many guys, Penei Sewell.
So many guys.
Most recently with David Montgomery and then Aleem. I was the surprising component of that. To some extent was the timing, but to a greater extent for me was the numbers. Maybe maybe I was a little naive, but $100 million over 4 years.
55.
We're talking close to Amon-Ra St. Brown money for that guy. I was a little surprised by that. $55 million guaranteed. He's just sitting at home on his couch watching Reba and gets a phone call saying, "Hey, you want 55 guaranteed $1 million?" It's a good story.
Yeah, it was. I know. When I was adding up the Sewell, St. Brown, and Aleem numbers, I was like, holy crap, that's $329 million in extensions for the 2021 draft class. Mm-hmm. So that is how you kickstart a rebuild right there, folks. But yeah.
It's a great draft class. One of the best all time in franchise history.
It's got to be up there, no doubt. And then you look at some of the other guys in that class and how important Barnes was and how important Melifanu was last year. It's just... good job, Brad Holmes.
Let's
don't yell at me.
Let's dive into the mailbag. It's beefy this week. Even got some food questions in there, which I always enjoy. But it's a lot of Aidan Hutchinson, and we'll start and probably end there. As always, you can send these questions to us via subtext. Click on any line story in MLive. You'll see all the information you need there to sign up and get at us. Cameron Jones leads us off this week, and I put this one first because we got a couple of them about James Houston, always a popular name. And I get it. 8 sacks in 7 games as a rookie. That's an NFL record, doing one of the most important things in this game, which is taking down the quarterback. And yet he's been a healthy scratch most of this year. Now with the injuries, there's a natural question from Cameron and others. Is James Houston going to be active this week? It's still hard to believe that he has struggled so much the last couple of years to get on the field. Last year was an injury. He only played a couple games, lost a real developmental opportunity to build on his year one. And this year, he's also struggled to get on the field because of performance issues. And it really strikes me, Ben, and I think you'll agree, square peg, round hole. Like he's an undersized pass rusher in a system that thrives on towering edge rushers squeezing the pocket. That's why they signed Marcus Davenport. It's why they drafted Aidan Hutchinson. And they were getting it for the limited time that we saw them on the field. James Houston couldn't become a Sam linebacker in training camp. He's just an undersized pass rusher in a scheme that doesn't really utilize that. And so square peg, round hole. But Ben, I guess maybe turning it to you, with the Hutchinson injury, the Davenport injury, like we're going to have to see some lemonade here, right? And we're going to see them tweak their scheme. And we've seen Aaron Glenn do it in years past because of personnel and injury issues. I do wonder if they give James Houston a shot. Like, hey, kid, like it hasn't worked, but we need you. Like, go earn it. Kind of a situation this week.
Yeah, if not now, then never is kind of where I'm at with it right now. But yeah, it's the fit with how they've kind of blended their defense throughout this rebuild, and it's also the fact that versatility is so freaking important to this coaching staff, to Aaron Glenn, to Kelvin Shepard, to Terrell Williams, and it's just Houston is a one-trick pony. It's a great one trick. I mean, it's an awesome one trick for sure. And I just think get him active, give him a chance, just use him as a pass rusher, nothing cute, and see if it's still in there. And if it's not, then move on, because right now it's not a good thing for both sides, because it's there's talent there, there's unique athleticism, there's unique ability, and he does have the ability to add something that they're going to need, and that's pressure and affecting quarterbacks. But it's at the point where the fit and the lack of versatility are like, you got to do something now, or this has got to end, because it's just not helping both sides. And it's a confusing thing, man. I get why fans are still asking about him, because he was a bottle rocket that rookie season, and you got to try and see if you can get some of that back for sure. I don't think he's going to eat a ton of snaps, but put him in some third downs. Let him pin his ears back and see if he can get after the quarterback with that skip to my Hugh move.
I think he's so small, which works against his fit in the scheme, but it does throw off offensive tackles, and I think that was a big reason for his success in 2022. Was just, who is this guy that's 2 feet above
right
the ground? We saw that a few times, but he's not taking anyone by surprise now. And yeah, I think they'll lean more heavily on the big guys that you mentioned, Levi, Pascal, and so on. But yeah, James Houston could fit into that mix as well. The question everyone wants to know is who are they bringing in? So far, the answer is Isaiah Thomas.
Awesome.
Not that Isaiah Thomas, or that Isaiah Thomas, but this other one off the practice squad in Cincinnati. But yes, Aaron Bennett is the first of many guys expecting a big move to replace Hutch. Are we going to see it? Disappointing if not. It could happen, right? Like Brett Holmes does what's necessary to make the team better. In his view, though, usually selling off a bunch of high draft picks or whatever to acquire a player in season, that has not been his MO. They needed a pass rusher last year. At least we viewed that as a need last year, and they could have had Chase Young. Montez Sweat was out there at some point, I believe. And the Lions rolled with what they had, because they want to build this thing to the draft. They believe in their ability to draft, and when these guys prosper, pay them to keep them in house. You know who they are. You've built them from the ground up as a player, and their work habits and so on. There's just so many more variables when you bring a guy in from the outside. It's also usually more expensive, and now you have all this extra money to sign an Aleem McNeil, or to sign a David Montgomery, or to give $200 million to Amon-Ra, or to Jared Goff, or to Penei Sewell. This is what they're doing, and so. Yeah, you could acquire a Max Crosby or so on, but it's going to cost draft picks, and we see what Brad Holmes can do with draft picks. So it's weighing that, knowing what you can do with a first or second round pick, and then having them under club control for 4 or 5 years versus the immediacy of the need they have right now, which is obvious. And it'll be really interesting to see what Brad Holmes does. But to the question, are we going to see this kind of blockbuster move? I would bet against it.
I would bet against it too, but I am leaving the door open, because Brad Holmes has proven to be an aggressive general manager, but aggressive in the draft and on those 3 days trading picks and stuff like that. Now, does that change with legit, no doubt, Super Bowl aspirations? Maybe, but I don't see it, just because they have built this thing through the draft. They have their guys in place here, and those guys do not come cheap. And Raiders owner Mark Davis saying it's not happening about Max Crosby. The report about Reddick is, he's a holdout wanting a new deal. That kind of makes you question his fit here too. But then you throw in the added caveat that the Jets are going to have to send the Eagles an extra second round pick if they trade him to an NFC team. So those are outside sources kind of pulling down the likelihood of it. But I just don't see it, because even when you start talking about Trey Hendrickson and his New Orleans ties and stuff like that, that's going to cost a lot. Those guys aren't moving for less than a couple seconds or at least a first round pick. And I don't know if Brad Holmes is ready to give his babies up. Right?
I like to think of it this way. Brian Branch is a second round pick.
Yeah.
Aleem McNeil is a third round pick. Amon-Ra's a fourth round pick.
Yep.
We know who he's taken in the first round, the pillars of his organization. So, you want Max Crosby, you want Hendrickson, some of these guys like Hassan Reddick, like these are the kinds of players you're giving up, and the
Yeah.
cost controlled 4 or 5 year contracts that come with them based on if they're taking the first or second round. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I would take 4 years of Brian Branch and beyond, and being able to build up a player like that over, a lot of guys.
Mhm.
And I mean, listen, I understand the need. This is a Super Bowl roster. This team is so deep. We've seen it since training camp. We've talked about it on this podcast since training camp. Like, I think we both predicted like 13 wins or 12 wins or something for this team. Like the possibilities are obvious. This thing has been trending up to an inevitable place, which is a Super Bowl. Run at the Super Bowl this year. And now, before you even play a single game in the league's toughest division, you're without both of your top pass rushers and a few guys behind them. John Kaminsky, like that's a name that we even forget about because he's been gone for so long. But Kaminsky's out too. And this is a passing league, right? And we've seen before what happens to the Lions defense when they don't have a pass rush. Like the calculus is obvious. We understand the need, but to what kind of price are you willing to pay for those immediate needs, because it will cost down the road. You'll lose a chance at a Brian Branch. Look at Brian Branch now. Like, look who he is, So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Knowing Brad Holmes as much as I do, like, you can't rule anything off the table.
No.
But I would bet against it.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see it happening personally.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they still have 2 open roster spots, and I think they're going to kind of do what Dan Campbell said and find role players that they've liked that are out there from the past couple of drafts they've studied and find pieces to glue in and lift the pieces that are here up. It's just going to take too much. Like, you're not getting Max Crosby for anything less than freaking 2 first-round picks. Like, that ain't happening. And I don't think they want to pay a guy like Reddick. I know he's awesome, productive, like 40 sacks, 240 pressures in 4 seasons, but he wants a big deal. So I think
you like, for me, you can make the money work. It's the picks,
yes,
which is gonna. I mean, 2 first rounders for Max Crosby. Like, Max Crosby's a hell of a player and he gives you a better chance this year. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But 2 first round. I mean, who are first round picks that they've had? Like Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta was a 35th overall or something like that. So borderline first round, second round guy. Like 2. You're giving up 2 of those guys to get Max Crosby. Plus, I think you have to pay him at some point if you pull off that deal. So it's tough. I wouldn't bet on it, but it could happen. And I know he's working the phones. That's already happening. So
right,
it'd be very interesting. Adam Herman specifically asks, and I love the wording. It's 5 words. Obligatory question about Max Crosby. The end. I love that. Ben, your take on we just kind of addressed it generally, but maybe more specifically, your thoughts on the fit and the cost and everything of Max Crosby in Detroit.
Dude, Max Crosby is the souped up, developed version of Aidan Hutchinson. The fit is freaking there. I mean, they're 2 workhorses that are dominating against the run, freakish pass rushers with a impressive repertoire of moves and stuff like that. I mean, the fit is there, no doubt, but like, why would the Raiders trade him? Why the Lions aren't going to give up that many picks to get him? I don't feel like, but yeah, I mean, in terms of fit, in terms of difference makers, Crosby's at the top of the list by a country mile, as I like to say.
Yeah. And he's like I don't know if he's from Michigan, but he played at Eastern Michigan. He has some Lions ties. I know he was on a podcast at some point. I saw it on Twitter, so it's got to be true. No, but he was really on a podcast, and he was asked if you could play for any team besides the Raiders, what would it be? And he was like, the Lions. Which I think is somewhat a Dan Campbell effect. People, we've been talking about that for a while, like this residual benefit of playing the game the way that you do. Like, everyone wants to play for a winner, but the way the Lions play is so interesting. It's so aggressive. Players love that. And so, hearing players want to come to Detroit, like, we're not used to it. I'm not used to it over the years, but
no.
But it's understandable now with the tide, having turned, and everyone's seeing where this thing's going. It's becoming one of America's teams, and it's the same for the players. And I think Max Crosby would love to get the hell out of whatever's happening in Vegas and come play with Hutch and Dan Campbell back here in Michigan, like, I don't know, 40-minute drive from where he played his college ball. Didn't they name the field after him or something? Or he gave him a bunch of money. I know that.
Yeah. No, man, it's anybody who gets traded to the Lions is eventually dropping to their knees and thanking the heavens. So I'll just say that. I mean, that's where it is right now for sure.
Joe Maloney in warm Arizona. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. He asks, in light of the Hutch situation, I know the Lions have looked into Hassan Reddick. Do you know if he fits the grit that it takes to be a Dan Campbell guy? Uh, and there's a bunch of Reddit questions.
Yeah, a lot.
I wouldn't put a dime on this coming together with the trade, with the cost that would take him get him in a trade. And he's been he hasn't played this year, Ben, in a contract dispute with the Jets, and I think there's too many variables there. It takes some time to get to football shape. I just think there's too much unknown there. The Lions, it's a big reason why they usually, they've signed their own and they invest in their own rather than going into free agency, because there's so many unknowns when you bring in a player that hasn't been in your system before, and to reach to the street level to bring in a guy who hasn't played since last year and is in a contract dispute. I just think the cost will be too high for a situation with too many unknowns.
Yeah, I love the football player. More of a speed rusher type guy off the edge, but I love the football player. But yeah, it's just the Jets traded for this guy in the offseason. You're going to trade for a guy that didn't play a down for the team that traded for him in the offseason. There's too much risk there. Like you said, while his team was in training camp grinding to get ready for the season, he was paying $800,000 in fines to hang out in Japan. And I just think that kind of, I don't think they'll take that risk. They did the right thing and checked in on it and probably talked to his agency and stuff like that per ESPN, but just, I don't see it either. I don't see that one coming together.
Chris Matthews asks, I'm sure everyone will ask about the defensive end position and adding someone. I'm sure Brad will do whatever he can, but there's a real possibility that even if they add someone, they don't have a huge impact. I totally agree with that, by the way. My question is, do we have the secondary primed to accept this challenge? I'm sure Aaron Glenn will want to bring more pressure from the outside sources, i.e. the blitz, making coverage an even more important part of playing well defensively. Bottom line, have they developed enough to keep this D in the top 10 without Aidan Hutchinson?
I think it's out of a top 10 defense without Aidan Hutchinson, but I think they can stay in the top half of the league, and that's coming into the season where we said they needed to be. I do think that there is enough to stay on the right side of the top half of the league. And as we've been kind of alluding to, I think there's going to be more manufactured blitzes. I mean, you just have to create pressure in some ways, and the secondary is better on the outside, on the inside, and back deep. You got the best safety duo playing in the NFL right now. That helps, but the defense is going to take a hit a little bit, especially in these first couple of weeks as they figure it out and move things around. Because I mean, you take away pressure. Hutchinson was still leading this team in pressures by like 20, so that's a big drop off. Quarterback's going to have more time to pick this defense apart, and you got another matchup with Justin Jefferson coming up. The Texans are around the corner. Jordan Love and the Packers are around the corner. They're going to take some hits here in these couple of weeks, but I think they have enough to survive and win games, kind of a la they did last year.
Yeah. We'll see. I think I'm dimmer on the prospects of the defense without Aidan Hutchinson. We've seen before what happens to this defense or any defense in the NFL when they don't have a pass rush. And for a while, Aidan Hutchinson was the only thing in the pass rush for Detroit. And it was a huge problem that was holding them back and making coverage so much worse. I mean, we saw you can't cover guys forever, and that's what was happening when Hutch wasn't getting home. And now there is no Hutch. And there's also no Marcus Davenport. And we don't know, going forward, what kind of trade will be in the works or whatever. But I'm not holding out hope of a top shelf kind of guy coming in. And so Josh Pascal is on the edge, Levi, like these are solid players, but they're not playmaking pass rushers who are going to, drop, 20 quarterbacks in a year, like Aidan Hutchinson was trending to do. I fear that tougher days are ahead for the defense and the Lions to make a run. It's just going to be more offense. And the good news is 89 points in the last 2 weeks, something like 12 touchdowns, I think. High scoring back-to-back stretch for the Lions since 1962. Those guys are on fire. Jared Goff, 150 quarterback rating each of the last 2 weeks. I was surprised to see only one guy in NFL history has ever done that. Did you see who it was?
I did.
Drew Brees.
That's all right. Yeah.
Really good stuff. And we've seen what the offensive might of this team is and the potential is. And we both thought they were going to be better this year, and they weren't in the first half, and they have been the last 2 weeks. And so I think that becomes this team's identity. Like, you hope to tread water on defense. I mean, that's what we hoped for in years past when the defense was struggling. Just please tread water and let the offense do its thing. And in the playoffs last year, the defense wasn't reaching that bar. It was a liability. And this year it had become a strength, and that was a nice thing to lean into. The calculus, the math is just different now. And I fear that's the reality because of the pass rush. Like, they're just not going to get home. You're going to see more passes completed because of it. That's just how it works when you're not getting home. So this becomes Jared Goff's team, Amon-Ra St. Brown's team, like they have some horses on that side of the
No
ball,
doubt.
and that's who's going to have to lead them now.
Yeah, it is. It does kind of feel a la the same problems we were talking about last season, but then you even take Hutch out of that equation. But talking about Aleem McNeil hitting the right notes at the right time,
True.
Freaking offense is hitting the right notes at the right time, and it is. I mean, the offense is going to have to carry that load, kind of like the defense carried them through the first 3 or 4 weeks this season. It's disappointing to see that happen to the defense because it was fun to see that growth and that kind of just Aaron Glenn style come into vision that we've been waiting to see for 3 years. But yeah, it's back on Ben Johnson, Jared Goff, and that offense, man. They got to eat.
Joseph Martin asks, okay, I got one for you. Hutch was obviously a front runner for Defensive Player of the Year, but now that he's out, do you think Brian Branch has a shot? I like that question.
I do too.
Joseph goes on to say that dude is ridiculous. What kind of numbers do you think he needs? I'm not sure of the numbers, but I did look up the history. I like the
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. I like to see the historical barometer for these kinds of things. And so in the last 10 years, 9 of the winners of Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL have been defensive linemen or pass rushers. The only exception was Stephon Gilmore. The last safety to win this award, Troy Polamalu in 2010, which is getting to be a long time ago now.
That's crazy.
We're old.
That makes me feel so old.
And in the last 40 years, going back to 1984, the only safeties to win Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, were Polamalu, Bob Sanders, Ed Reed. That's the bar. And is Brian Branch that? I don't think so, but I think Brian Branch is amazing. I think he's a really, just like, it's not like he does something well. He does everything well. And that's what I love about Brian Branch. You can line him up all over the defense. He can get you a sack in the backfield. He can take down a ball carrier in the backfield. He can pick off a pass. Dude, that pass that he intercepted in the end zone in Dallas, we talked about it on Sunday on the pod, but the instincts, the ball skills, he's got it all. I mean, it's crazy that you have Kirby Joseph, and Kirby Joseph might not be the best safety on your team,
right?
Because Brian Branch is him, as the kids say. And without Aidan Hutchinson, you need, it's what we've been talking about. Other guys got to step up, and Brian Branch has been great. He needs to be a superhero going forward. They're going to lean on him hard because he's just like Aidan Hutchinson's a playmaker. You no longer have him. Like, I think Brian Branch is the biggest playmaker on this team right now on defense. And like I wrote coming out of the game, he's been great, but like more will be expected of him if this team is to weather the Aidan Hutchinson injury. And will he be Defensive Player of the Year? Probably not, just given the lack of safeties who usually win it. But you need him to be that kind of player, or you're going to have some issues on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember asking Branch before the season started about how much he loves blitzing, and it was basically just like a 10-second, bro, I love blitzing. So I think you're going to see him maybe get some more looks out of the slot, closer to the line, get him getting after the quarterback, because he just has a nose for the ball. Because that play he made in that first quarter, man, that's a play that the best slot cornerback in the league might not make. I mean, that is film study, that is athleticism, that is pure natural instincts. And I just think, get him near the line, get him on some pass rushes, keep him in the role you're doing it in, but just sprinkle him in, getting after that quarterback a little more. I don't think he has a chance to win Defensive Player of the Year. If he keeps creating 3 takeaways every game, just give it to him. But yeah, and I know 2 of the 3 names listed there are 2 of the 3 names that he compared him and Kirby Joseph to right now. So I not a braggadocious type of guy. So that was kind of fascinating to hear after the game. I was like, you just compare yourself to Troy Polamalu?
That's really funny. You use that particular word, braggadocious, because I use that exact word in the exact same way about describing Brian Branch after the game. Did you read that?
I did not.
That's sorry. It's a really specific word, and we both said it in the exact same way.
6 years together.
About the same guy in the same situation.
Because I remember, I was like, holy crap, he's talking his smack right now. That's awesome. But no, I just...
that's exactly what I wrote. Like,
so
you
awesome.
knew he's feeling himself and playing that well. And Brian Branch, who you can struggle to have to say 5 words to you, in any question whatsoever, was like going up about how we're the best safety duo in the league.
So true. That's awesome.
Wow, that's wild.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So
that's us.
Yeah. So I love this question from Raymond Nuznoff. We'll end this thing a little lighter, and then we gotta get to practice. But he says, "I'm just curious, as beat writers during a game, how do you balance writing a story, tweeting about the game, and most importantly, eating?" Ben, you've been on this beat now. This is your 5th year, is that right?
Sixth season, fifth year,
season?
sixth
So
season.
what would be your response to like balancing those things that are required of us?
Well, you taught me well when it comes to eating.
Yeah.
You eat the first plate with everybody else, and then you go back and you make a second plate to pick at during the game and to have something there at halftime. And it kind of all just blends together, man.
Yeah.
Between the subtext, the live updates, watching the game, taking notes. It's Matt Patricia quote. Ben Johnson said his name today, so I can say it too. It's drinking water from a fire hose.
I perked up when he said that, by the way.
I was like, "Whoa,
I was kind of doing something else at the same time. I heard the word Patricia behind that podium.
Yeah. But no, it's a fire hose, man. Once that clock starts going, you look up and you're like, holy crap, it's almost halftime. I better start eating again. I got like 10 minutes here, but yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, no, the second plate is key because some of the places like Dallas, like they feed you at halftime, they feed you after the game, and it's amazing food. We had like a carving station and everything. It was unbelievable. But they're not all like that. Sometimes there's like something limited at halftime. I've had it before. It's like nothing after the game. That's always a bummer. And there's nothing worse. I mean, like these are like the most first world problems ever. But there's like, it really is tough to like work from it. You know, for a 1 o'clock game, I'm getting to the stadium at 10 a.m. I'm not leaving until 8 or 9 p.m. usually. So it's tough when you have like a breakfast or an early lunch and then you're stuck working and you can't leave and because of deadlines and stuff and you're starving. Like that's just like a tough place to be. So I started doing that a few years ago and most of the time it really pays off is having that second plate.
Oh, it pays off big time. And yeah, in Dallas, it was freaking carving station, roast beef, and I forget what else they had, but
at some point Ben comes back with an entire cup of candy.
Warheads. All warheads, man. That's the key to stumping anxiety.
Shout out Jerry. Although like I couldn't decide which dessert to have. So I had all 4.
I had 3 of the 4.
And I hit a sugar rush at like, oh man, it like the first quarter was tough for me. I was like crashing.
I had the fattest weekend of my life.
Yeah.
Texas State Fair, in and out.
Tell the people about the fair. Deep fried lemonade. Like, come on, man.
Colton Pouncey and I, shout out Colton, eat bacon burn ends and then go, let's go to the Texas State Fair. They have something called deep fried lemonade there. And it's basically just donuts rolled in lemonade until the point that you're able to fry them. And then I chased that down with a couple lobster corn dogs and had Whataburger and in and out after the game. And I'm probably 300 pounds again.
Going to Texas is always tough. Houston's food is also usually pretty good. I know you're going down there in a couple of weeks, but you eat well down there. And it's a beautiful thing. It's, doing good work through that stuff is
God. Exactly.
I mean, the greatest challenge, right? And Ford Field's not exactly known for the best food, but I love the tradition of like Thanksgiving in Detroit, and they always have a Thanksgiving meal for us, which is beautiful.
They do good,
except for the year where I didn't get it right away, and all the food was gone besides the green beans. That's a real story, and it was like the worst day of my career. But like the greatest challenge to beat writers, like. Figure out how to navigate the Thanksgiving meal in Detroit and not like take a nap by like the second quarter.
You're eating turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy at 9:15 in the morning. I remember one year Mike Mulholland and I went out for breakfast before the Thanksgiving game. And then I was like, why did I do this? I'm not going to be able to make it to the locker room. Good food questions. We like this.
Always bring them on. Lions are 4-1. The Vikings are 5-0. They are top 1 and 2 in the toughest division of football. They meet for the first time on Sunday in Minnesota. I'm fascinated by the best offense in the league going up against one of the best and most aggressive defenses in the league. Ben Johnson versus Brian Flores will be appointment viewing. It'll be the first game in the post-Hutchinson world, so a lot to watch. And I think we're going to have a really good sense of what this team is capable of without Aidan Hutchinson after Sunday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Just well coached over there, man. Tough matchup.